All right, so let's get into buyers. Who here has buyers that they are currently working with? Just raise your hand. Okay, we've got some folks raising their hands. This is exciting. So this will be fruitful for us. I want to start the conversation with protecting our schedule. So when you're working with a buyer, I want to think at a high level how to phrase this. What should that relationship look like? Like as you are their fiduciary, in your mind, what does a good relationship, a good partnership look like, buyer agent wise?
Good communication.
Absolutely. Good communication.
I think you should have shared goals. So you've met and you have a very good feel for what they're looking for and what they need. And they have a good understanding of what that's going to look like in that particular market.
Nailed it. Yeah, that's great. So common goals and understanding how to achieve them.
Got to make it personal with them right off the bat. First meeting, it's trying to understand who they are, ask them the questions, and then relate with them. That's how you get them. If you jump right into let's get you a house, you haven't earned their trust yet.
Wow, that's a great part that you just bring up. Trust. Building trust and building rapport is what's going to get you business after this one closes. And it's going to be what gets you referrals after this closes. It's going to be what gets you that listing 5 to 7 years from now when they go to sell, and then also you'll be their buyer's agent. Great call out. What else? What else hasn't been said yet?
Patience right now, just with the nature of the market, not pressuring them and being patient with the fact that it is going to be competitive, not trying to force them to buy something.
That's a great point.
Patient with their frustrations.
There are two models. Hold that thought for 1 second, Keith. There are two forms of thinking when it comes to being a buyer's agent. That is the business mindset where my time is worth more than their time, and I only want to show 1 or 2 houses. So I'm going to go in so granular on what they want that the first house we see will likely be that one. Versus the other end of the spectrum where, hey, I've got to be patient. I'm not going to be pushy. I'm going to show them the number of houses that they want to see, and I'm not going to be the aggressive agent who's ramming, hey, we need to offer down their throat. So I love what you're saying. Establishing the expectation of patience is so critical, especially in 2020.
Well, yeah, and I also meant it more towards the just the competitiveness of the market, being patient with the fact that you're probably not going to get every house you offer on. It's probably going to be multiple offers, and yeah, it was just stressful for them and you.
Yeah. If you get every house that you offer on in 2020 or 2021 even, I want you to start teaching the class on how to win the bid, because that's tough right now. Keith, I cut you off. What were you going to say?
I found that most of the buyers that I've come into contact with really have no clue what the process is. And so I think a lot of it is explaining to them what the process is, what they can expect from me, what I expect from them. Going through all that stuff, make sure they understand when I'm available, how long it's going to take me to get back to them. Just that kind of thing, so that they're not going in blind. The vast majority of the ones that I'm reaching out to, that they've not even been to a bank, they've not been pre-qualified, they don't know what pre-qualified means. So just a lot of basic explanation of what they can expect from me and what they need to be doing.
You said something that stood out to me, and this is where I really want to start is when are you available, Keith? You said, what's your availability?
My availability varies depending on what's going on in my life, but typically I am available Monday through Saturday, from say 2 o'clock in the afternoon till 6:30 or 7 to meet. They can reach me by phone up until about 10 o'clock. If they call, they can reach me by phone early mornings, but I'm typically not available to show unless it's well ahead, something like that. So Sundays are pretty much out unless it's a special case. So
Okay. And there's no right or wrong answer here. Everyone's going to have their own answer. The key here is that you have an answer, meaning you have established the expectation with your client, and mine looks way different than Keith's. I want to be available as much as possible. So I always encourage folks to reach out to me via text, and I always just implant this at our initial conversation. Say, hey, I'm easiest to reach on text because I do attend a lot of meetings and I'm in classes a lot as I do these other things. And that allows me to get back to you as soon as possible. But I always leave with the understanding that they will have an answer by sundown, meaning the end of the day, I will get you an answer on whatever it is that you need. And they also understand, and I make it known because we're building trust, to Casey's point, that, hey, I do have 2 children and a wife at home, that I'm going to be eating dinner every evening with them. Unless there is something that is a fire that we got to put out, I'd like for you to respect that boundary that I'm setting. I will get back to you as soon as dinner's over. And I've never received any pushback on that. You will not receive pushback from a normal human being on things that are just basic common sense. If you're getting pushback from somebody on your availability, then odds are their expectations have been allowed to get too high. And so we might need to revisit or re-level set. Because at the end of the day, like most of you probably got into real estate because number 1, it can be lucrative. Number 2, you can be your own boss. Number 3, you can work whenever you really want to. You want to have that flexibility in your schedule. And so this works for Keith because Keith has a full-time gig. He also has a second full-time gig being like a pastor. He's got a third full-time gig growing a killer beard. And then he sells real estate. He's able to be successful in real estate. How many things you got in contract or have you closed on this year, Keith? You're on mute.
there we go. Actually, not that many this year.
Okay.
Well, I'm about 3 since I switched over to Keller Williams, and I put an offer in today that you helped me with some negotiation tactics. So I'm thinking we got a win with that. We ended up negotiating it to get it exactly what we were wanting. So
Wonderful. Moral of the story, though, is in the time that I've known you, which has only been a couple months, you've shown that you're going to be successful this year in a short time, and you're doing it not working 40 hours a week. How many hours would you say you work a week?
on real estate,
Yeah.
probably 20.
Okay. Real estate is what you make it. Okay. And if I was going to coach you to become a mega agent, and this goes for all of us, I would probably coach you to spend more than 20 hours a week in the business, and you can still be successful at 20 hours a week. You could be successful at 10 hours a week. It's all in how you want to do it. And so, think about that. And when you're having your initial consultation with a buyer, although it is about education and it's about building trust, it's also about building expectations about what you're going to protect in your life. So let's talk about the education. What's the process look like to buy a house? What's one of the first things that we should advise a buyer to do? Somebody who, to your point, Keith, has no idea what the process looks like. What's one of the first things we should encourage them to do?
Get pre-approved.
Yep. How many buyers, Katie, have we been linked up with that can't buy a house currently?
Probably like 98% of the buyers.
So too many. The answer is too many.
Moral of the story is it worth our time going through the laborious steps of educating from start to finish the process of buying a home to a person who cannot buy a home yet? The answer to that is simple. The
No.
answer is no. So, hey, John, I understand you're interested in buying a home. That is so awesome. Let's talk a little bit about that. How far along in the process are you? Oh, well, I just started thinking about it. My wife and I have decided it's time, or we're getting a little bit crowded in the house. Awesome. That's great to hear. I'd love to help you out. Have you talked with a lender yet? Well, no. What's that look like? Well, great. I'm glad you asked. So working with a lender is kind of the first step, because you want to know how much home you can afford. You also want to know if you can afford a home right now, or if there's some steps that you need to take to improve your credit score. Having that open and honest conversation with a buyer is oh so critical, because you're educating them. You're also going to be linking them up with some lenders that you know and trust, and you're getting them the answers that they need. Because at the end of the day, how could you possibly build a search for somebody if they don't even know how much home they can afford? When I say link them up with lenders that you trust, this is a rhetorical question. You don't have to answer this. Do you have lenders that you have started to build rapport with? And if the answer to that is no, that's okay. I'm shocked that lenders haven't knocked down your door to try and get a coffee with you or whatever. My very first year, I met with 3 or 4 lenders. We had coffee, and I decided, okay, if they're willing to go out of their way to start a relationship with me, I will give them some business. I currently have 0 relationships with those original lenders. And the reason for that is because I found other lenders that did a better job. At the end of the day, I want to encourage you guys to start forming these relationships. And it's not just that lender relationship. Who else? What other vendors should we have relationships with?
Title company, home inspectors, radon inspectors, general contractors,
Structural engineers.
cleaners.
Electricians, plumbers, landscapers,
All
Yeah.
those things.
The list goes on, and we could we could go through the whole, what is it, white pages? Who uses that anymore? Is it white pages or yellow pages? I forget.
Yellow pages of businesses.
Okay. You could go through the whole book, and you could say that you could validate a reason for making those businesses part of your network. They can only help your business, because having the right connections that you know and trust to take care of your clients are so critical. For me, in my business, and for Katie and Chelsea, we trust, first and foremost, this is going to sound like I'm a homer here. I promise you that's not the case. I trust Keller Mortgage more than anybody else. I get nothing back from Keller Mortgage, though. That is the one part that sucks about Keller Mortgage. The only thing that I get out of Keller Mortgage is customer service that has been unrivaled by anyone else. So I'm not getting any money from them. I get 0 marketing dollars. They help me 0%. Aside from giving my customer the best possible communication, the best possible transaction, meaning they know that our customers know what's up when it happens, because they're directly linked via text message. I get a text message every single time somebody applies for a pre-approval. I get a text message every time Keller Mortgage sends the final closing docs to the title company. It takes all the guesswork out of it. The other 2 lenders that I typically send people to are people that are, your mom and pop closing or lenders. I will say this, here's my verbiage when somebody says, well, I'm thinking about going with Chase because I bank with them, or I'm thinking of going with Huntington because I bank with them. Okay, great. Well,
Forget it.
Here's my experience with them. I never want to poo-poo my potential client, my buyers, in any way, my goal is to educate them. And through educating you guys, hopefully you can educate your people that you're working with as well. Has anybody had experiences with Chase or Huntington or Quicken or the larger banks?
I have.
Maureen, hi, Maureen.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you for the first time ever.
I
Welcome. I've heard Chase.
Sorry. It took me a while to get on the Zoom, so
It's
then I
okay.
realized that I had to update my settings. So
It's okay.
I'm
Better
sorry
late
I'm
than
late,
never.
but,
So what we're
I
talking
have-
about here is large banks here. So
Yes. Oh yeah.
when you deal, my script for when people say I'm thinking about going with Chase, like, well, that's wonderful. I will also send you 3 names that I know and trust that I've actually got experience closing multiple deals with. And the reason I'm going to send you these 3 names is because typically when you go with a large bank like Chase, you're not going to know who you're dealing with from day to day.
Oh,
They're
trust me, I know that.
slower to react, meaning that there's John has to speak with Robert, who has to speak with Pam, who has to speak with the underwriter down in the dungeon who's looking at your file. Like, it is a never ending loop and it's so hard to get answers.
Yeah.
So if you want somebody who is a little slower to react, then let's go with Chase. Otherwise, we can go with one of these smaller guys who you're only going to be interacting with 1, maybe 2 people, but you will be kept directly abreast of where your file stands. And odds are they'll be proactive in enlightening you so you don't ever have to go ask them.
I must want to be one of the only ones who had like the easiest transaction with Chase. It went so smooth, they didn't even appraise the house.
You're not proving my point. Shut up.
I'd never seen that, where they approved a loan without even doing an appraisal.
Yeah, it happens from time to time, but for the most part, guys, hey, if you have a great experience with Chase, more power to you. If you got a great person there,
I think it's fun.
I want you to be well-versed in how to approach the lending situation, how to speak to it. I am happy to send out that list of my 3 top lenders, and you can steal shamelessly. Tell them that I sent you so that they know where these leads are coming from, so that they can be highly responsive to you. You want to become in relationship with people who are highly responsive because you're sending them people. In a perfect world, it will be the theory of reciprocity that we talked about last week by holding events. Like, you give them a buyer, and eventually they'll have a lead that comes through, hopefully, that they'll be able to give to you that will formulate turn into a transaction. So that's enough talk on lenders. Hopefully you get the gist of it. So if the person has not been pre-approved, hey, first step, we're going to get you pre-approved, and then we will set up a search and really get going. So let's say that the conversation has started and you ask them, hey, have you been pre-approved yet? And they say magically, yes, I have been. I've got the pre-approval letter. Great. What's the next step? Casey, you kind of said it. In my eyes, I like to get in front of the person, either in person over coffee or in their house, in an office setting, or at the worst, this right here, or on the phone. Actually, no, I never do phone. I always want to see the person and look them in the eyes. Why is that so important these days?
I think it helps to build rapport, for one.
Yep. And Melody said it's personal. It's more
Mhm.
personal. And when you build rapport, you're building that relationship. If I've said it once on our calls, I've said it a million times, you are not in a sales industry, you are in a relationship industry. So the relationship that you build now will pay dividends in the future. And if something were to go awry during your transaction, or maybe even you drop the ball on something, you've established that face-to-face connection, and they're going to trust you more than if they don't even know what you look like. You could technically go through a whole
absolutely.
transaction and not have a clue what your other counterpart looks like because of technology.
That's
which
been
is
90%
great.
of my clients.
Yeah. Yeah. You deal with a lot of property managers and investors and stuff who don't even live here in probably Columbus, right?
Well, yeah, everything I ever sold, probably 95% of the things I've sold, I never met the seller in person.
Yep, you're in a unique situation in that you've kind of got a different background in property management, and so you've got some contacts that not everyone does. In a typical transaction, I want to encourage all of us to establish face-to-face connectivity. It leads to more heartfelt connection and leads to future business. So
Absolutely.
building a relationship, just getting in front of the person. And I honestly never start with, okay, let's talk about what you want. I always start with, tell me a little bit about yourself. If I don't know the person, and if I do know the person, hey, how have things been? You're showing that this person is more than just a number. It's more than just a paycheck to you. You're showing that this person is going to become part of your network, your sphere, your friend group. At the end of the day, I think we all deep down inside want that. Even introverts, they want to have friends, right? We were built for community. So I think it's important. So once you've established rapport, you've shot the crap with your people, and you've got caught up, then it's time to do a little education. Well, hey, John, I'm glad that we've been connected now. Let's talk. What do you know about the process and what don't you know? Allow them to bring their concerns to the plate. It's more like a Q&A session then, and it's not just you talking to them, because odds are they've had a long work day, they just got off, they're dealing with their kids in the background, they're not paying attention to you anyways, most likely. Hey, what questions do you have about the process before I launch into my education? They'll probably ask you some questions like, well, hey, it's, I've never bought a house before. What does it look like? Or I bought a house, but it's been 20 years. What's new? What's the process look like? I have some resources that I'm going to share a screen with you that will be helpful. At the end of the day, it all comes down to how you want to present the resources. This is a good resource. This is something that I can share with y'all. You just ask for it if you want it, or you can make your own. This is a buyer timeline for your educational purposes, and so that you can enlighten folks that are getting into the buying process. Say, okay, well, step one, you've got pre-approved. Step two, we need to go find houses. So what is it that you're looking for? I like to start there by saying, what are you looking for in a house? What would the perfect house look like? And so what are some search criteria that we need to generate a good polished search in the MLS for people? What are some characteristics we need to know?
They're must-haves.
They're must-haves, meaning?
If they wanted a 3-bedroom, a ranch, style of home, location, et cetera, et cetera.
Beautiful. I always start with how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms. Why? Because everyone knows that right off the top of their head. If they're in an apartment right now that's got 1 bed and 1 bath, they're going to know immediately, I want 3 beds at least, and I want 2 full baths. That seems to be the MO for almost everyone right now. And then you go from there. And then you ask them probing, penetrating questions. How many square feet, or is that important to you? How big of a yard, or is that important to you? Oh yeah, you want a large yard because of the dog. Do you need it to be fenced, or is it okay if it's not? Oh, you've got a lot of stuff. Do you need a basement for storage? Maybe they're in a higher end price point and they can afford it. So maybe you ask, well, do you want 3-car garage or just 2? Does that matter? I like to leave it as open as possible. However, I also want them to know that I know my stuff, and I want to set the most precise search possible so that they're getting as many, everything that does come through is more pinpoint accuracy rather than being very broad and general. And then you said something, Rory, that's super important that we sometimes forget to ask. What's the geography? what areas of town would you be willing to live in?
Don't you have to be careful of that?
No. As long as
So
not
you're asking
steering
them,
to
you're not
one.
steering them at all.
You're
So that-
asking them. You're
Yeah, what
asking
you're,
them. Okay.
yeah, what you're asking is kind of in regards to like steering or redlining or whatever.
Yeah.
No, I never offer up any insights into the areas as to try to
Okay.
avoid certain areas. I leave
Okay.
it to them.
Okay.
A lot of people, especially if they have children, what are they going to care about?
School district.
School district.
Yeah. And if they ask you about school districts, what are you supposed to say?
Tell them to research it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, John, I'm not allowed to tell you my opinion on these things, but I can encourage you to go research it on your own because I'm not
Really?
supposed to be steering you.
So you can't even send them a link or anything to school districts?
I stay out of it completely
Completely?
just
Okay.
to avoid that. Melody asked if we're allowed to send a link or anything. Everything's so at the fingertips anymore with technology. I say, honestly, John, I would just research that on your own. I don't want to get in trouble for doing anything I shouldn't do. So great call out.
And you say, can you say something like, really, we have so many good school districts here, and we do. I mean, that's the truth. There are any number of really good school districts.
Well, by saying that, you're also implying, if you say, well, this is a good school district and this is a school
You're
district,
saying
good school district,
something
you're also saying, well, Columbus City Schools sucks. And so I never want to get into that.
I
So
see.
I
Okay.
stay away from it completely. Just
Okay.
skirt around the issue and say, you need to research that on your own. Last piece, and we haven't said it yet. What's the most important deciding factor in your home search?
Price.
Bing, bing, bing. Price. So this comes down to what you've been pre-approved for. So, well, okay, John, you've been pre-approved for $400,000. Are you comfortable spending that much, or would you like less? When you set the search, so let's say they say, no, I'd be more comfortable at 375. Okay, cool. So you've got all this information. You've got 3 beds, 2 bath minimum. They want 1,200 square feet. They need half an acre, priced at 375 in Dublin or Hilliard. Okay, cool. Does everybody know how to set a search? And this is another rhetorical question, because if you do not know how to set a search, simply log on to the MLS and either research MLS, the first class or the second class. They'll teach you how to do it from start to finish much better than I probably can. Or you can reach out to me one-on-one and I'm happy to show you. I've got some shortcuts. When setting a search in the MLS, should we only include the exact precise parameters that they've given us?
No.
Why are you saying no, guys?
Because if they can get more for the money, then why not? Just because they have a minimum square footage doesn't mean if they wouldn't want more if they can get it, or things like that. You don't want to limit their options too much.
Mm-hmm.
And houses drop in price.
That's a great call out. Melody just said sometimes they don't know exactly what they want. So if I'm a first-time home buyer or even a home buyer that's been at it for a while, and I think I really need 5 bedrooms. I need 5 bedrooms. You set a search and there's like one result, right? Because there's no 5
Right.
bedrooms available.
I got one.
All right, big baller shot caller over there. I think people's searches adapt after they've seen a place or two. So I always like to create a little buffer space in a search. So if they're only looking in Dublin and Hilliard, well, I'm going to sneak a little bit of Plain City, a little bit of Worthington, a little bit of Galloway into there. So I'm still following what their search criteria is. However, my guess is, and I normally ask this, okay, John, well, you're saying Dublin or Hilliard, but if I found the perfect home for you and it was located across the street in Plain City, would you still want to see it? Well, yeah, I guess I would. Okay, cool. That creates your buffer zone. If they only want 1,200 square feet and up, but I found you the perfect home and it was 1150 50 square feet. Would you want to see it? Well, yeah, I probably would. Okay, perfect. If I found the perfect home that was priced at 380, would you want to see it? Yeah, I'd want to see it. Plus, whenever I set a search, I like to leave room for negotiation. So if they're saying 375, I normally set it up to 390. Because if it's been sitting on the market for a long time, who knows? Maybe we'll get a deal on it. So never set the search for exactly what they want. Okay, cool. We've got the search set up. Now what? We talk about showings probably. Okay. Hey, in this market, and this is where it comes down to education, right? In this market, are things sitting for a week? Nope. Does that mean we have to be very responsive and quick to react? Yep. When I set my search, do I click that I want them emailed, my buyers emailed ASAP, or am I only clicking once a week? It's always ASAP. If you've got a serious buyer, you better be pushing ASAP. Otherwise, you are not being a fiduciary. You do not have their best interest in mind. You should be blowing up their emails with opportunities. Okay, cool. So now you set the expectation. Hey, John, as soon as you see anything at all that meets your requirements, that interests you, you've got to let me know ASAP because we got to get you in there. I want you to look through the list of people who have been emailed or on this call. This is your sphere of people who can maybe help you out if you're out of town and you've got a person who is an A buyer who needs in right now and you can't do it. You've got peers here that can maybe help you. Send a note out to the group. Say, hey, can anyone show this house for me? I'm in a doctor's appointment. Or, hey, I'm on vacation this week. Can anyone help me out?
I did that for an agent last week because she's quarantined for COVID, even though I could barely walk. And she actually paid me to do it, like $100.
Yeah.
So
scratching someone else's back will pay dividends in the future. Just being a good person will be great. Anyways, establish the expectation. Let me know as soon as possible so we can get you into this place. We don't want to miss it. And then you go see it. Okay. And do you all know how to use showing time? If you don't know how to use showing time yet, then holler at me. Okay, cool. We've seen the place. Now we want to offer. What does an offer look like? Use that first interaction to explain the purchase contract. You don't have to go through it every sentence, but what would happen if you just shared a blank copy of the purchase contract with the buyer so they can look at it at their own leisure? And then when it came time to actually write the offer, you've already let them see it and they already know, hey, there's only a few lines on this whole contract that we're really going to be impacting. So let's talk about the high ticket items. Let's talk, what's the purchase price going to be? What are you comfortable paying? In this market, unfortunately, if it's been on the market less than a week, how can you justify going in under asking price?
can't.
You can't. It does not matter what the comps say. If you want to win this house for them. Now, as a fiduciary, I will also say this. I do look at comps before I make any offers. And I will tell them, hey guys, at this price, I do not feel that it is a good value. Do you still want to place an offer? That's proving to them that you've got their best in mind. But know your clientele as well. Know if they're capable of hearing that. Some people just want to ask for your opinion when they feel comfortable with it, and some people don't want to know your opinion at all. They know better, right? Know your client. So what's the purchase price? Are we going to add any contingencies like, hey, or drop contingencies? We'll remove remedy because this thing just got listed and we need to sweeten the pot a little bit. Do you know understand what that means? So some people don't understand this, but when you remove the remedy request, you still are entitled to an inspection. There's a clause in our dot loop or in your DocuSign. There should be a clause that's written by a lawyer that dictates that we still get an inspection. We're just not going to ask for any remedy. You still have the ability to walk away from the contract if you're unsatisfied with the inspection. Other things that you could do to sweeten the pot would be appraisal gap. So let's say you bought it for 400, it only appraised for 390. Well, there's a $10,000 gap. A seller's mind would be put at ease if there was somebody bringing $10,000 to the table to bridge that gap.
Hmm.
You have to inform your buyers of all the possible scenarios that will give them the best edge in this offer situation, especially if you know you're going in multiple offers. If you're going into multiple offers, should you just ask, or should you just offer asking price?
No.
If you offer asking price and you know there's other offers out there, you're wasting your time. Additionally, educate your people. If they're conventional loan or cash buyer, they have an upper hand. If it's an FHA, VA, USDA offer, you have to inform your people and prepare them for worst case scenario. Say, hey, I'm glad that you have this pre-approval. I do want you to know that we may have an uphill battle and we will find you a home, I promise. It's just this loan type is not as appealing to certain people. Certain people don't understand that. If you're a veteran, you'd like to think that your service was worth something more than a piece of paper, right? But it's the fact of the day. And as a fiduciary, I always like to inform them of pros and cons of this whole process. At the end of the day, they will respect you, if nothing else, for sharing all the details with them. All right, so let's just say we get in contract. There's all kinds of different stuff through the contract. I don't want to spend much more time talking about the contract. Educating them and filling out a timeline as soon as you get in contract will be super important. So boom, contract's accepted. You as the buyer's agent should send the signed contract to the buyer's lender. Why do you do this?
Make sure it gets to them.
You make sure. You never want to risk somebody else dealing with parts of your transaction. You never want to risk the buyer saying they'll do it and then they never do. And then you get a week out from closing, you're like, wait, you don't have a loan commitment yet? Where is that at? Well, I never received a contract. Over communicate with all these vendors, okay? Once you've done that, you've got to order the home inspection. And all this can be done on Dotloop and I'm sure on DocuSign. You have access to what's called a buyer's timeline, where you literally run through the contract and you formulate a timeline of deadlines due by whatever date for each of these heavy hitting items to make sure that you stay in contract. My very first contract, I totally missed the remedy request period. Totally did. Luckily, the other agent, although he was an a-hole, he wasn't an a-hole during this time. He actually helped me out. And he gave me some grace. Don't be like me, my first transaction, okay?
So you call the home inspector, you don't have your client do it?
No. I have them call.
Okay.
That is on them. Now,
Alright.
if you formulate an agreement with a buyer to arrange all this stuff, that's great. But I am not present at home inspections.
Right.
Home inspections typically take 2 to 3 hours. Ain't
Yeah.
nobody got time for that. And with 2020 being COVID year, the home inspector doesn't want you lingering around them for 3 hours.
Right.
They normally advise you to come for
Oh,
the
that's
last
right.
30 minutes so that they can appraise you of the information. But they will send you a report and they will send the buyer a report. So the buyer doesn't even technically have to go. The buyers typically do. But that's on them. That's their first out-of-pocket expense. So it's encouraged to inform them of that in their initial consultation to say, hey, you're not going to spend $1 on me. That's important to know. You're not going to spend $1 on me or my commission. The seller pays my commission here in Central Ohio. So that should ease their mind. And then the first and only out-of-pocket expense that you should have before closing is going to be the home inspection. I encourage all the inspections, and yet in this market, you may look to overlook some, and that's okay. It's all on you. But don't say I didn't warn you.
Can I ask a question here?
Yeah, please.
I am personally looking at a property that already had an offer that fell through. And that, so it's already had a home, well, it's already had a home inspection. So can I, if I make an offer, can I request another home inspection?
I always request, in order to save money, why not, and save time too, why not just request the inspection before you even offer?
Mhm.
Say, hey, Jimmy, I'm a realtor as well, and I'd love to gain access to the home inspection if you've got it. And if he's smart, he'll send it to you. So he avoids taking it off the market again, and maybe save you $300 or $400. The typical home inspection costs $300 to $400, and then added additional if you want radon, well, septic, pests, etc. We're running out of time here, so I'm going to keep going. Once the home inspection's done, then you're going to have a request to remedy time frame. I just filmed a example conversation with a client, and I put that on our YouTube channel. If you have not yet viewed the library of coaching materials or training materials on my YouTube channel, go to Trailblazing Real Estate on YouTube. And I've got a ton of educational videos that we're continuing to upload each week. And those are based directly off the questions that you guys give me. I never want to be asked the same question twice and not be prepared to answer it. So I want to give you guys the resources at your fingertips. Once you get through that remedy period, you need to do all these other things. I'm not going to go through every single thing here. Moral of the story is that this very first meeting that you have with a person, you're establishing rapport, expectations of schedule both ways, and you're educating them on the transaction process. And then throughout the whole process, what are you doing more than anything is communicating. One thing that people do very poorly, and I think that's why a lot of people don't see the value in realtors, is we do not educate the person that we're helping on what it is exactly we're doing. I send a text at least once or twice a week, updating my people on where we stand, even if there's been no news, so they know that I'm still in the loop on things. I also inform them anytime I have an interaction with the other agent, so that they know that I'm pulling my weight. At the end of the transaction, nobody's ever said, I don't understand what you did during this transaction. Everyone always praises our responsiveness, our communication, and it leads to a 5-star review. At the end of the day, that's our goal, right? Is to make the transaction as stressless as possible for not only ourselves, but obviously for our buyers. And at the end of the day, get a 5-star review. Throughout the process, one thing additionally that we don't do, that we should, is ask for referrals. When would we be smart to ask for referrals? There's three times in my mind that we should always ask for referrals. When they get the house, for sure. So when you're under contract, because they're happy, exactly. They're happy. Oh, yes. We're going to tell everyone we just got the house. Well, great. While you're telling people, do you know of anybody that's looking to buy or sell that I can also help? Boom. That's one for sure. What else?
Closing.
At closing,
Yes.
without a doubt. They're on cloud 9. They just got the keys. Hey, thank you so much for using me. I love y'all. Can't wait to celebrate at your housewarming party in a month or two. Who else do you know that's looking to buy or sell? What's the other time?
The housewarming party.
Okay. Well, that's ongoing. I like to do it right when I initially meet them. Hey, I'm so glad that we're meeting. I'm so excited for you that you started this process. Who else do you know that's looking to buy or sell? Odds are when they come to you, the realtor is normally the last step in the puzzle. I hate to say it. I wish we were the first, but we're normally the last part of the puzzle because they need us to find homes. They've already told all their friends, their family, their coworkers, hey, I think we're going to start looking for a house. When that happens, don't other people say, oh yeah, me too. Tell me about the process. So if other people that they know are raising their hand, why not ask them right then and there? Maybe you'll get some referrals. At the end of the day, go to closing, celebrate, I always take 3 things to closing. Number 1, I take one of those big red folders, like it's an envelope that you can put all your stuff in, all your closing documents. I give that to them. It also conveniently has a spot for my business card to fit in. It's like a little window. Therefore, what I tell them is, hey, here's a bright red envelope. You'll never lose your documents. So if ever you need anything for tax purposes or whatever, it's in this red envelope. And also, if you ever need me, my contact information is there.
That is so, that's
Another thing I always do is give a handwritten thank you card.
absolutely.
Handwritten because they know that I value them enough to write it out myself. And normally I put
Mhm.
something fun in there or funny or heartfelt. I try to make them cry or laugh, some kind of emotion. And then number 3, I always bring a closing gift, whether it's a bottle of wine or I've gotten into this swing of things where I've got this vendor who helps me out with like their cutouts of the state of Ohio, and it says home, or
Oh.
this is where our story started. Something fun for them to decorate their walls so that every time they walk by that sign, who do they think about? It's selfish, but it's subliminally selfish, so it's okay.
It's okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Melody. All right, guys, so that concludes our coaching call. So hopefully you learned something about setting expectations with buyers today, what the process looks like, and some best practices for how to interact with your folks. Hope this was good. If you need any questions answered, then holler at me. Otherwise, I look forward to here in the next few weeks. We're going to be starting one-on-ones, and we're going to be talking about your goals for 2021. Look forward to seeing y'all.
Thanks, Josh.
Maureen, I look forward to meeting you in person tomorrow.
Hey, thank you. Hi, Casey.
Hi, Maureen.
All right, see y'all.
Thank
See you
you.
guys.
Bye.